Dr. Guru, coming back to the question of challenges or limitations that are associated with LLM, so how should the organizations be aware of?
Basically, we should be accepting a reality that LLMs are still uh, not accessible to a very common or a very individual level usage very easily. So when I say that, what we see is like when a mobile application is like individually available for every person, it's like kind of democratizing it, the availability of LLM. Even though there have been small applications which can connect them, still we are far from having an easy access to LLMs which are very accurate for a common man to be used.
Okay.
So still they have computational constraints being going through. So they can't process a huge data. They can't process mimic a human as it is.
Right.
So first we need to understand what is their current scope of their ability within the what is the limit they can process the data, right? So typically they are measured in terms of tokens. So when I say token is a kind of a character which is very similar list of characters or a word. Like 4 characters make a token.
Okay.
So every LLM which has been developed, so it's measured by its limit of how many tokens it can handle. So ChatGPT 3.5 came with when it started, it came with only 16,000 tokens. Now then when it came to GPT-4, it became 128,000 tokens.
Okay.
So every day there is an increase in tokens where they can optimize multiple things and things like that. When they so there is a trade-off between the number of tokens and the accuracy. So always there is an optimization thing happening between these two. So a lot of work is being going on in this. So in practice, for a user of LLM, right, what he needs to understand is he or she cannot use a long article and just process just like that.
As in attaching a long document.
Attaching a long document, a long text. So it has to be a simple cut shorted sentences with which you can process it.
Okay.
So if you give a long sentence, so lengthy sentence without a full stop, LLM may get stuck.
Okay.
So that is a thing an LLM user needs to understand it. Whoever is developing solution using LLM, they need to understand very clearly that what is the token size, and for a particular type of a document, how do we cut short those sentences so that the LLM can understand better and give you the necessary results, respond to you with the appropriate results.
So now like GPT-4 kind of has this feature of attaching a document. So if the document itself is lengthy, what I'm saying is the document can get into number of pages. Okay.
Right. So the second part, the first part is how do you split into tokens.
Okay.
So there is a splitting of words into tokens is a key thing. So it can handle 128k tokens, which means that every step of its training, it will take that 128k tokens. So it's like it can process the whole document, but it can keep adding it. Correct. So it cannot do at a stretch.
Okay.
So there is a sequential steps involved in that.
Okay.
So still you can process a huge set of a huge book or anything, but every time it has to get mapped into that context, and then it starts generating a sequence by itself then.
Okay.
So there is a kind of a attention mechanism algorithm which is being very fairly used on it. So I think maybe in due course of time when we discuss more about the technical details, we can discuss that.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
So effectively what we need to understand is we have to give the text input as smaller chunks so that it becomes easy for the LLM to understand. So we should not be giving a lengthy sentences to the LLMs, right? So because that forms the base, and based on that retrieval techniques are being built on it. So everything is in evolving stage, and people needs to understand we need to give smaller sentences with crisp sentences which can be easily understood by the LLM.
So it's more work on part of the person who's trying to get solution out of LLM.
Yes.
So every now and then they kind of have to give those short prompts.
So if I say what is your name, it's a small thing. What is your name, I need to ask because this question is so and so. If you keep adding the context,
okay,
so it will try to put it in a bigger context with which it will also have to do a lot of computational work and respond to you back. So most of the time it needs a kind of a free breathing space so that it can match the context very correctly in a short span of time, because the response time should also be appropriate for you, right?
Okay.
Yeah. The second thing, so when we talk about limitations, right, the token size computational constraint is a very right word to use. And there is a thing for so once your context or if your tokens become lengthier, right, then there is a cost involved in it. The computational cost of processing a particular query, it also get increased. So you have to be cost efficient, right, and also then it affects the accuracy of the response as well. Right. So how does it affect your accuracy? It can hallucinate, it can be inconsistent, it can do multiple things where it may miss out that real fact that has to be fetched.
Okay.
So there is a thing called factual consistency in a typical LLM's output. So on top of it, then when we are giving a good sentences, right, most of the LLMs are not updated to the moment. So always you have to have an updated information that has to be again embedded in the context and passed on to the thing, so that it becomes the response gets updated. So if you ask a ChatGPT 3.5 turbo, 3.5 at least, right, it may not answer you beyond 2022 or 21. Right. So if you ask about Tata New, it may not answer you.
Okay.
So that information has not gone into its knowledge base. So what we need to do is we have to have a separate knowledge base that has to be added or appended to the existing knowledge base. So for that you don't have to retrain it, but at least it has to have a set of pipelines which can take that context and start answering it. That's the way LLMs have been built. So you do a massive thing, and for small and minor updates you don't have to retrain the algorithms, right?
So it's somewhere I have this very I don't know, I'm from a non-technical background. I still have a doubt where now, for example, if I take an updated information from a site, now I don't understand what it is, and I ask whether ChatGPT or some other platform to explain what that is. So since the information that I collected is the latest one, but I'm asking this to explain it, it'll explain me. But is it possible that it will take this also as a knowledge or a data that it can have it with it forever?
Yeah, that storage is not possible.
Oh.
That storage is not possible. That's what LLMs are meant for.
Okay.
LLMs cannot store that updated information unless until they have been trained for it.
Right.
So you build a huge thing, and for small minor thing you don't have to retrain or re-update the update back your own LLM model, which is going to be a very costly effort.
Right.
So still you can manage it, right?
Yeah.
Still you can manage it. You know what? So there are certain processes where decisions which can be done. Even old people still come and serve the organizations. They make decisions, but they get the updated information from their subordinates for the contemporary thing.
Correct.
Still, some of the decision-making processes are still the old, right? The same way you can imagine that way. So still, hiring an employee and exiting an employee is still the old same process, but there are a lot of enhancements happening there. Enhancements, and say a lot of technological advancements will help them to basically enhance the process. You can look at that way.
So
it's no more a paperwork.
Right.
It's no more a paperwork compared to 25-30 years ago. Still everything is computerized, everything. The same way you can still have a kind of updated information enhancements made for you, so that you can take a decision very quick.
Correct.
In the earlier good old days, what they do, they will have to pass on this a person when he's entering or exiting the company. Lot of background check and any existing pending things are pending from the employee. A lot of things have to be checked. Right now, people don't do that. They have an updated information in front of the screen.
Correct.
The same way you incorporate that knowledge base into an LLM. So it can give recommendations, and it can even though it can automate, it can be a kind of a very very loyal subordinate for you, so that it can recommend you all the decisions what you can make.
So here user cannot train.
User cannot train.
User can only give the information, get the information.
Then we will all lose our jobs, right?
Yeah, that's true.
So
yeah. So
if that is the case, right, then there are a lot of autonomous systems can do multiple things where even companies don't need to exist, right?
Yeah. Definitely there are challenges if comes to the user who can.
So basically, see the final objective or prime objective, we can say, not the final. The prime objective of any LLM or any technological advancement is to increase the productivity, not to replace anybody, not to send out of anybody. It has to. The primary objective should be increase the productivity of any task or any organizational process. So that has to be the motive, and that will keep growing.
So I think that is the impending fear right now everywhere, that AI has come and then we are going to lose our jobs.
The objective is to increase the productivity.
Right.
So nothing else. So any routine task you can automate it, so that the organization can have very strategic things which they can stick to their core competencies and things like that, right? Yeah.
Correct.
So then, coming back to the limitations. So again, I said it has to get updated by itself. Even though you build pipelines, right? You said there are some, you can have a streamlined pipelines for its update, right? And that always poses a challenge for any LLM's knowledge base update. So there has to be a human intervention to make sure what kind of information can go to the knowledge base of the LLM. It all depends on the context, individual's context. So now an organization may not like a competitor's or any sensitive information which can affect their own LLM knowledge base. So they may restrict it. So it's individual LLM's individual organization's individual priority, where they can filter out what are the informations that can be updated and what cannot be updated. If you automate that will be really a chaos. It can lose its own credibility. So there has to be always a streamlined effort for updating its current knowledge base. So that's still, it's not in an automated fashion. And second thing, there has to be an effort for cross-checking all its response what it generates. LLMs are known for their hallucinations, because they are still programmed output machines. So they may not have a real human-like thinking, where the cognitive have become very much automated. So still there may be certain occasions where you will always they may not respond consistently, they may not respond accurately, up to the sometimes they may not respond updatedly. So all these three things have to be taken care by an LLM expert. Correct. who can feed that information in the right sense for that. So then the safety, right? As I mentioned, it should not post any risk to the users or the enterprise. So those things are very sensitive things. So, and on top of it, it cannot remember a long-term information.
Okay.
So it cannot, when I say long-term information, so you don't have to worry about it. When you have a streamlined database of 10 years of data, it's fine. But once it gets into a kind of a long-term information, it doesn't have to remember. It has been built in that way.
Yeah, so by 2032, it might forget whatever it had. Is it something like that you're kind of referring to?
It may happen, but once you stress if you give some weightage to certain information,
okay,
right? Say that information can stay for longer. So it all depends on how you train it, what kind of weightage you give to certain knowledge bases.
Okay.
So with that, we can still maintain, okay, these are the knowledge base, I can still hold it. Some knowledge context, I don't have to remember it. So you can streamline your training process in that.
Okay.
Yeah. So still they'll lack a long-term learning. So that it's up to us to how do we optimize it, and it cannot answer any complex reasoning tasks. Still they have a limitation, even though they're coming up. So it's a still evolving process. They cannot solve a very complicated puzzle. Had it been the case, all the grand challenges of scientific community would have got solved, right? Okay. But still they are in the preliminary stage, and people are trying to use it to solve their own some of the grand challenges in the business world and in the academic world also. So
we also have heard news like where it was able to solve, or it was able to clear law exam and medical exam and all that.
One here and there, some of the things are possible.
Okay.
Right, but can that be like universal, consistent?
Okay.
It's a question.
Yes.
It's a question. So it's a question, and soon you may see some kind of LLM based solutions for many of the grand challenges in the scientific community.
Okay.
So people are making a good effort in astronomy, in protein folding, right, in many more grand challenges of the scientific community. People are making an effort. Yeah.
I remember browsing through a particular site. I don't know. That is also an LLM. It's called Bloom.
Okay.
if I'm not wrong.
Yeah,
I'm not-
Bloom is a
yeah, that's
foundation
mostly
model. Yeah.
to do with scientific research and
No, not necessary. Bloom is a kind of a large language model. It can do a speech to text, and multiple things can be possible. But
Right.
everything is covered in today's Gemini and ChatGPT kind of thing.
okay.
So they were all pretty 2 or 3 years old now.
Okay.
So updated ones are from Meta, right? Meta, Llama 2, and people have used Bloom as a template to improvise that and come up with more products.
Okay. So it's an old one.
It's a old one. Yeah.
Okay. Right.
Updates are happening in Bloom as well.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
All right.
And so, as I said, there is
Yeah, you said
there is a lack of consistency, right? They can today if you ask a question, they may again there is no necessity for them to answer the same answer for the same question next time. They may contradict themselves.
Okay.
So because of its token generation, there is a kind of a level of uncertainty or a probabilistic calculations happening behind the LLM models. There can be in contradictory statements many times. For the same question, the responses can differ.
Correct.
So accuracy or consistency becomes an issue with large language.
Right.
These are evolving things. People may get solutions very quickly, but these are current limitations. What I would say.
Right.
And when I say certain linguistic features, right, elements, still they have there is a lot of scope for development within LLMs. So if I say sarcastically something, it many of the times it cannot. Sarcastic is like you can be sarcastic for many more things, not a preliminary one. Oh, is that right? A small thing. When you give a different tone to it, right? So it can have multiple meanings to it. It all
Correct.
depends on the human context, who understands it. So sarcasm cannot be understood that easily by the LLMs. So still there is a challenge.
Okay.
Still there is a challenge.
It might, answer very sincerely to
Yeah,
that.
not
understanding
it's
it's
a very
sarcasm
straightforward,
coming out.
honest subordinate for you.
Right.
It will still answer the straight way. It will never say. It will never give you a wrong thing.
Yeah, like you said, we need to give it like proper prompts, and you can't have a communication like you're talking to another human.
Exactly.
So,
exactly.
Yeah, simple. I mean, even in ChatGPT, sometimes if you look for you want a proper the language, the tone of the language, you probably need to change or have it in more casual way. And it continuously goes on giving you the same kind of a response. And then somewhere the user is a little frustrated and tries to say that, no, you're not understanding. You got to give me some other.
There has been some efforts, right? But
Yeah.
it's very risky to implement in a for a very common tasks.
Right.
Very business usual task. It's very, very risky to use it.
Correct.
So people are experimenting it. So things may happen soon. So those things can be handled. Yeah.
So now I'm trying to kind of understand the sentiment analytics part here.
Yeah. Same thing. When you say, so how do you understand sarcasm in sentiments? It's very difficult, right? You can say happy, you can say sorrow, you can say anger. All types of six emotions, 6 or 7 emotions, or 6 emotions, right? So beyond that, sarcasm is an emotion or what? How do you quantify a particular statement as sarcastic? So that's very, very subjective, right? It's not. It cannot be objective. So you cannot exactly quantify that it's kind of a sarcasm. So it needs a lot of contextual data training needed for a particular thing. So you say as we see India as a multicultural thing. So if you look at Malayalam language, right? So there is only one word called O. So people speak O a letter. They pronounce that O in a very, very different context. O, which means that didn't you know that?
Okay.
O, which means is that so? So that one single letter O. How do you understand this?
Correct.
It's very cultural, right? So LLMs need to be trained for each and every nuances of every language.
Exactly.
So it's a long way to go, right?
Yeah, it has to kind of understand the idiomatic expressions that people come up with and try to connect with that specific region or that specific ethnicity.
Exactly.
It is kind of difficult.
Yeah.
So since we discussed that, in e-commerce or other customer centric places where it captures it understands the emotions of the customers, and based on that, whatever solution we could provide, then that kind of a thing is not there with chat gpt.
No, people are trying it. People are
Okay.
trying with all these things. So, for
Okay.
example, in Britain, right, in UK, so people say ta. So, do you understand what is ta? Ta is for thank you.
Oh,
So you
Okay.
can't say anywhere else, and you can't go and say. Only a Brit can understand what is ta.
okay.
So our people person who has lived in Brit can understand. So these are all very simple things, right? You have LLM. If it is very well trained, it will understand it. Maybe the guy is speaking Brit English, not in US English, right?
British English.
So that's the way. A lot of fine nuances and what do you say some colloquial thing. Everything has to be
Colloquial expressions. And
everything has to go into the training. So we are far away, but we are in the right direction. People are using all those, collecting
Yes,
all those
yes.
information and feeding those information to LLMs. Soon we may see a better. Every day LLMs are getting better. Yeah.
Yeah, it actually sounds like we have a long way to go, because
Yep.
to capture, to get like a regional level to a,
Exactly.
completely get that feel with the audience there.
Exactly. So the same thing, whatever you're in the right thinking mode. So the same thing has to come to an enterprise level context awareness.
Right.
So typically, an enterprise, even though enterprise is a very common word, we are an ITES service enabled, right? So ITES related vocabularies and the conversations and transactions may be very common to a particular ITES service organization. This cannot be true for a telecom industry. It can be entirely different.
Right.
So, but if you give data, LLM are capable of understanding those subtle nuances and differences. It can get trained on that as well. So the only thing is, how do you streamline your data to be trained? Then you can add more value to your accuracy, your consistency, and everything.
So does it kind of understand like a stereotypical content, or how do I put it?
So basically, when you say stereotype, right, it's kind of a biased thing. So what we see, whatever we speak, right. So within our organization is like, even though we are a global, we have global branches, right. So in Japan, Singapore, Dubai, UK, and US. Still, our own apart from India, right. Apart from India, we have multiple branches across the globe. So, but IT Innsbruck is connected in a kind of an Indian setup, right? So you can imagine. So we have connects, but our own ITES Innsbruck culture is unique, right? So how has that been formed? You know that 5 rings of things.
Right.
Everything is a kind of a brand unique thing. So there is an enterprise context awareness being built. Even though if you are in US, we still need remember that we are within this 5 rings of. Inspirus logos, right? You remember that?
Yes, yes.
So the same way, but those things are not unique to any other organization. We are in a way unique. That uniqueness has to be transformed to in the data form to be fed to
that particular
LLMs.
Yeah.
Then it'll understand the moment you say Inspirus, it'll understand that it's an ITES organization. It'll understand that it can people in and around the Inspirus can talk about banking related projects, technicalities in banking, and also about printer manufacturing companies, because these are all our prominent clients, right? So it can understand that these people Inspirus people in Inspirus can understand these terminologies. It'll also can understand very easily.
Right.
Yeah. So that's where there is also a bias, right? But that bias can be used effectively. So when you say Inspirus, these are all kind of narrowing down to a context, but this cannot be replicated universally, right? But when you go to another organization, this cannot be the same. So, but the LLM has to come out of this when it quotes in another organization. So there is a bias to it, right? So there's a bias.
It's slightly confusing, sir. Can you just put it again?
Yeah. So, say taken another organization which is not at all part of, doesn't serve any kind of a banking or a the printer manufacturing services.
Okay.
So it's still an ITS company, but it has different clients with different domains. So their way of conversations may not be true. May not be the same as Inspress's, right? So then when it say ITS organization, if it has seen only Inspress's ITS organization, the LLM has not seen any other ITS organization. Then whatever it responds, it will be based on the biasness towards Inspress's. It will also think that, okay, this is my kind of ITS organizations are supposed to be like this.
Yeah. Okay.
So it can have a bias towards that. Okay. That biasness has to be removed with more data and things like that. Yeah.
Right.
That's what I'm trying to
Understood. Yeah. So, I mean, it appears. I mean, although it is quite magnificent, but there's so much to do. Improvise and get things fixed, because of course the way you described it, the way you kind of elaborated on that particular point, it is very clear that there's a lot more to happen and it'll take more time.
No, things are happening very fast. It'll not
Really?
things are happening very fast. Okay. Because it's everybody in the world, it's working as we do. They're much more faster as well because of the thing, and we are also not faster, but we are trying right now more of application oriented thing.
Yes.
Gradually we would also want to contribute in to the community what LLMs can be made better in terms of safety, ethics, and new LLM development. So Inspress's has plans for that.
Okay, so that could be an exciting topic of discussion soon.
Yeah.